With the playoffs upon us, and players returning from injury, hard choices need to be made by Bruce Cassidy, and the lineups could look like almost anything with the way the Bruins ended their regular. So we polled our authors to see what they think the lineup looked like. Sky. Forwards: Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci, Rick Nash, Ryan Donato, Danton Heinen, Riley Nash, David Backes, Ryan Donato, Tim Schaller, Sean Kuraly, Backes, Axiari. Reserve player reserves: Gionta, Wingles, Donato. I have the fourth RW spot essentially being a revolving door purely because Kuraly is among the most recent players to be placed on injured reserve. I like what Gionta and Wingles have brought in relief so far, but the reality is that Boston desperately needs its time players to produce if they are apparently closer to coming back than not. They were picked up as depth signings and that's what they need to be. Depth. Reserves in case the worst happens. Otherwise, everyone else finally slots in where they're supposed to be and put themselves in a position to win. Defense pairings: Zdeno Chara, Charlie McAvoy, Torrey Krug, Kevin Miller, Matt Gressick, Adam McQuaid. Not having Brandon Carlo in the lineup hurts a lot, but at the absolute least the balance of the defense pairings by having a puck mover and a stay-at-home defender. They've found the best possible balance for these lineups without Carlo. Matt Gressick will be just fine with Adam McQuaid, and Kevin Miller has really found himself in the top four-ish as a solid stay-at-home player and penalty killer when asked. Goaltending: Rask could open. Dobby can get the call if Rask just has a disastrous first game or so, or if he gets hurt. Otherwise, he can enjoy the show from the best seat in the house. Chris Abraham. Forwards: Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci, Rick Nash, Danton Heinen, David Backes, Ryan Donato, Tim Schaller, Noel Axiari, Sean Kuraly, Riley Nash. Reserves: Tommy Wingles, Axiari, Kuraly, Brian Gionta. Hear me out. This bottom six gives the most ability to deal with an injury in game, as well as being able to withstand a younger player's lack of production. Riley Nash can play center or wing, and move up and down the lineup as needed. You could even swap out Axiari for Kuraly, as they are fairly similar players, but I would keep Axiari and due to his better penalty differential. One downside to this lineup is that you break up the third line that has been solid for the majority of but the versatility and number of top 9 options gives Cassidy the option to put that line back together if things aren't working. Defense pairings: Zdeno Chara, Charlie McAvoy, Torrey Krug, Kevin Miller, Matt Gressick, Adam McQuaid. Kevin Miller has been more than serviceable in a top 4 role this year, having been used in that role 75% of his games this year. Carlos' injury means he'll have to step up into the top PK role with Adam McQuaid to fill Carlos' 246 per game of penalty killing. Goaltending: Tuukka Rask. Anton could open. Sorry Anton, it's still Tuukka's net. Adam. Forwards: Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci, Ryan Donato, Danton Heinen, David Backes, Brian Gionta, Tim Schaller, Noel Axiari, Tommy Wingles. Yes, I know, we're not quite sure who's suiting up for Thursday's opening game of the playoffs. That's what made this so hard to assemble for me, knowing what the Bruins are missing in the Super Nash brothers and Kuraly as of right now. Fortunately, the choice is made easier knowing that there are only so many players that you want to put at center without the originaltum Riley Nash and Kuraly. If these 3 players become available, Riley Nash would center Heinen and Backes, a line that played very well together before Bergeron got hurt and would have returned to form had Riley not fallen shortly thereafter. The return of Rick should push Donato to the 4th line with Schaller and Sean Kuraly. His youthful energy would feed well off of Kuraly's, his shot would add a bona fide scoring threat to the line, and Schaller's experience is stabilizing if he's caught out of position. If Donato falters, you can staple him to the bench without affecting the top 3 lines and swap him for Axiari if the Bees need a grit 4th line. Honestly, the hardest part would be scratching Axiari, but he moves like a dump truck compared to Schaller, Kuraly and Donato. In a bad way. Defense pairings: Zdeno Chara, Charlie McAvoy, Torrey Krug, Kevin Miller, Matt Gressick, Adam McQuaid. Nick Holden has not impressed me, but will be a serviceable 7th. I also can't wait to see what Krug and Killer can do as a pairing. Goaltending: Tuukka Rask. Anton could open. I'm sorry, but if this needs explaining, go home. If you're at home, put yourself in Twitter timeout for at least an hour. Colin. Forwards, Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci, Ryan Donato, Danton Heinen, Riley Nash, Rick Nash, Tim Schaller, Sean Kuraly, David Backers. Extras, Tommy Wingles, Axiari, Brian Gionta. Donato, Rick Roll and Backers are all interchangeable on the 2 to 40H lines at RW. Ride the hot hand, etc. I personally don't want to see Wingles or Gionta in the playoffs if everyone is healthy. Good depth pieces, but they should be on the 9th floor on this roster. Defense pairings, Zdeno Chara, Charlie McAvoy, Torrey Krug, Adam McQuaid, Matt Gressick, Kevin Miller. The second and third pairs are really just 2 second pairs on this team, and the bottom 4 can be interchanged based on special teams usage and needs. Goalies, Rask, Free Elf. Yeah, this one should be pretty self-explanatory. Dobby has been great, but Rask is the starter. Jake. Forwards, Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci, Ryan Donato, Danton Heinen, David Backers, Rick Nash, Tim Schaller, Noel Axiari, Sean Kuraly, Riley Nash. Reserves, Tommy Wingles, Noel Axiari, Sean Kuraly, Brian Gionta. My lines are very similar to Chris with one exception, flipping Ryan Donato and Rick Nash. At the very least for Game 1, I would want to rush Rick Nash getting a ton of minutes back. Even for being the last forward, Donato has absolutely earned those second-line minutes. Later in the series, I would doubt seeing Donato and Nash flip back, so Rick is with Krejci again, but to start, I'm not rushing Rick at all. Defense pairings, Zdeno Chara, Charlie McAvoy, Torrey Krug, Kevin Miller, Matt Gressick, Adam McQuaid. My favorite surprise of the 2017-18 so far has been Matt Gressick. It was tough to watch him sit during last year's playoffs in favor of Tommy Cross, but to be frank, the player Grease was then and the one he is now are totally different. Gressick has adjusted really well to the NHL game. He looks more confident, knows how to hold the blue line a lot better, and seems less intimidated by the size of the league around him. He's played his way onto this roster and stayed, so it'd be no surprise to see him take the third line slot over Holden. Goaltending, Tuukka Rask, Anton Khudobin. Come on, where are all the Tuukka Rask haters? I'm not one of them, as this is his net to lose. Is it nice to know Dobby is playing well behind him? Absolutely. Still, it's clearly 2Ks, too good to not put in net. What do you think the lineups will be? Sound off in the comments.